her, and then she put it in the ark, and both Robin and I felt like, oh my God, she feels like she's giving up the Torah. She didn't even care. Robin said, you can say goodbye, you'll see it next week. I was just, my heart was breaking for her. Yeah, she was on to the next thing. I said, do you want to give the sermon? She was like, maybe. So Shabbat Shalom, everybody. There was in this congregation a very long conversation about the congregation's use of the sanctuary for funerals. In fact, it was such a long conversation, it spanned the lifespan of two rabbis. And each made a good argument. Each side claimed that this is a sacred space, and that if we were to associate this space with funerals, then this would become a place of sadness. The other side said that this is a sacred place, and it's a place for happy occasions as well as sad occasions. And both are true. As often is remarked, once you see something, you can't unsee it. And once you associate something with a certain place, then that becomes its association. Once a place is associated with a specific event in a person's life, it's hard to see it in any other way. And it's true, because I can't tell you the number of people who I have met in the streets who have heard that I'm the rabbi of Greenberg Hebrew Center, and they say, I was bar mitzvah there. And the place becomes associated with the fact that that was the place they became an adult. And I'll add from personal experience, whether you are a regular or you come less frequently, those associations influence you. They add to your experience when you're there. And so I've told you this story hundreds of times. I'll tell it to you one more time, because it is one of the most powerful stories in my rabbinate. Many years ago, I took a group of people to Israel. Before the trip, one of the participants came over to me and said that she was a convert, and that the reason why she had converted was in order to marry her husband, and in tribute to his father, who was a Holocaust survivor. She told me that she worried that when she got to Israel that she wouldn't feel anything, and that would be an indication that she wasn't really Jewish, that the conversion maybe didn't take. And that she felt that if she had gone to Israel, there would be a litmus test for her Jewishness. I told her not to worry. And so we arrived in Israel and we talked, and she felt a connection. However, the night before we were to go to the Kotel, she came to me panicked. What if she wasn't moved to tears standing at the wall? And I reassured her, of course, that she would feel something deep and profound. As I waited on the plaza, she went to the wall. After about a half hour, she returned. Tears filled her eyes. I worried she had felt nothing. But then she explained the depth of emotion that overwhelmed her. It was the same for me every time I prayed at the wall. Times I prayed for my daughter when she had cancer. Times I prayed for other loved ones who suffered. That place is different. It's holy for me. In this morning's Torah reading, Abraham makes a deal that would forever connect the Jewish people to the land of Israel. Vayakam Sidei Ephron asher b'machpelah asher lifnei Mamre hasadeh v'hama'ara asher bo v'chol eitz asher basadeh asher b'chol gvulos saviv. So Ephron's land in Machpelah near Mamre, the field with its cave and all the trees within it, within the confines of that field. Avraham v'likmei l'mikna le'inei b'nei Yuchet b'chol ba'ei sha'ari. And Abraham as a possession in the presence of the Chitim, of the assembly of the town of its gate. V'acharei chen kavar Avraham et Sarai ishto that me'arat sedei hamachpelah al pnei Mamre hi Chevron be'eretz Canaan, and Abraham buried his wife Sarah there in the cave of Machpelah facing Mamre, which is now known today, says the Torah, as Hebron. You know, my daughter has a friend who said that he's going to go to Hebron this weekend, as is customary. But you know that Hebron is a hotly contested area now. So, of course, she forbade him because she's that influential. But Abraham, by purchasing the plot for Sarah, made the statement, "This is where I will remain, and I won't leave her. No matter the mistakes I made with her while she was alive, I remain committed and connected to her, even in her death." You see, in life, you don't buy a plot for a loved one and then move away. You don't bury your wife and then move some other place. Vayikbaru oto Yitzchak v'Ishmael banav el me'arat hamachpelah el sedei Ephron ben Sochar achiti asher al pnei Mamre. You see, Isaac and his brother Ishmael buried their father in the same cave. They had laid down roots there. They buried both of them in Me'arat HaMachpelah, in the cave of Machpelah. And then the Torah reminds us, Hasadeh asher kana Avraham et b'nei Chet. That is land that was rightfully purchased by Abraham. And that's where he buried his wife, and that's where he lays buried to this day. And that's also why in a few weeks we're going to read the story of Joseph, who at the end of his life, after having given his entire life to Egypt and the promotion of that land, the growth of that land, Joseph says, "Make sure that when you leave Egypt, you take my bones with me and bury me alongside our people in the land of Israel." To be connected with our people means to rest in peace where they forever seek peace, and that is the land of Israel. My daughter explained to me this week that she went to the first of what she expects to be many funerals. You see, she made Aliyah with so many young men and women who are now serving in Gaza. There's a young woman who made Aliyah 1 year after her through the exact same program, Garin Sabar. Religious people making Aliyah. And she had a friend. And this friend, Sergeant Rose Ida Lubin, was 20 years old, raised in Metro Atlanta. But more than 2 years ago, she packed her bags and moved to Israel, where she joined the border police. And now, this week, buried in Har Herzl. And you may have seen the videos of her bat mitzvah speech in which she said she hoped to make some contribution. Now, she is very much a part of the land of Israel. We've always spoken of the triumvirate of Am Yisrael, Medinat Yisrael, Eretz Yisrael, the nation of Israel, the state of Israel, and the land of Israel. As Kohelet reminds us, V'hachut hamishulash lo b'mheira yinatek. There is a threefold cord. And once you have a threefold cord, Kohelet tells us it's not easily broken. Kohelet says if one attacks, two can stand up to him, but three can't be broken. So we say Am Yisrael, Medinat Yisrael, Eretz Yisrael, the people of Israel, the state of Israel, in the land of Israel. That, of course, you know, is not the entirety of the story in this morning's Parsha. The purchase of the burial plot in Ma'arat HaMachpelah was not the entire story we read this morning. In fact, what we started with was the moment after Sarah dies and Abraham gets on with his life, but more importantly, he gets on with helping his son get on with his life, continuing in the face of the loss of a loved one who protected and cared for him. You remember how protective Sarah was of her little boy Isaac when his older brother Ishmael may have been a bit of a bully. Just like so many in Israel will have to do when this war ends, they'll have to continue on, they'll have to pick up the pieces, and they'll continue to say words that I believe will be said triumphantly on Tuesday in Washington. Am Yisrael Chai. The people of Israel lives. We're not going anywhere. Achut mishulash lo yinatek. This threefold cord won't ever be broken. And so the story goes like this. Vaya'avieha Yitzchak ahoela Sarah imo vayikach et Rivka vatihi lo la'isha vaya'aveha v'yinachem Yitzchak acharei imo. Isaac marries Rebekah and brings her into his mother's tent. He finds some consolation in his newfound relationship. Vaya'aveha, and he loved her. Love triumphs over death. The bonds of love are stronger than the bonds of death. Eliezer, Abraham's servant, does what he is instructed. He finds a wife for Isaac and he brings her back to Israel for them to build their life together. It's a reminder that Israel is not just a place where we are tried by the suffering of war, but it is a place of celebration and triumph. It's a place of love and care where everyone is your mother. Just go and you'll see for yourself. I'll tell you a funny story. You know I have 5 children. We brought them to Israel. We went to a supermarket, and we have one who's a wanderer. Yazzie, you had to keep an eye on her all the time. And as we left the supermarket, we got about a block away. Yazzie's mother yelled to me, "Take Yazzie's hand before you cross the street." And I turned with utter fear in my eyes and said, "I don't have her. I thought you had her." At which point I rushed back to the supermarket, and she was there with 6 mothers, all scolding me for what a terrible father I was. But all the while I knew she was in good hands, because in Israel everyone takes care of everyone. See, location is important. It's part of who we are. It's Isaac that brings the two together for us in recognizing that there in life is loss, and it is sad, and in some cases it is tragic, and in other cases it's horrific, but we can overcome it with love. We can build a new world for our daughters and sons. Isaac brought her in the tent of his mother Sarah, and he took Rebekah as his wife, and Isaac loved her, and he found comfort. Israel and Israelis certainly don't identify our homeland as a place of conflict. They remind us daily that Israel is not a place for war, it's a place for love. It's a place for comfort. It's the home in its greatest sense for any Jew who wants to be there. Most every Israeli in Israel will try to convince you to make Aliyah. I remember one of my first trips to Israel, I was standing at the kotel dancing at what was known as Hakafot Shniyot. After the holiday of Simchas Torah was over, we were dancing at the kotel for another opportunity to celebrate just a little bit more. We were dancing in a circle, and one guy turned to me, and he knew I was from America, and he said, "Welcome home." Israel is our homeland. Israel's a place where we have already seen too many funerals. Scarcely a family in Israel will not be touched, and certainly not a single person in the country will be spared from attending a funeral. But the story doesn't end there. They will rebuild Kibbutz Be'eri. They'll rebuild Kibbutz Alumin. They'll continue to rebuild Sderot over and over again because they'll continue living. And they'll dance at weddings for themselves, and they'll dance for those who cannot be there. Look, I'm not particularly connected to where my father is buried. And I can tell you honestly, I rarely ever visit. It's not because it's not important, it's just that it's not where I feel my father most. I feel him most in his synagogue, congregation, Rosh Shalom, as he used to say, on the corner of Park and Capitol Avenues. And that's why when I heard that community is disappearing and the building might be sold, it was sad to me. It was the place that I first got married. It's the place where my father's funeral was held. It's the place where I stood as a bar mitzvah on this very morning. It's a place where I ran through the halls for USY and Kadima conventions. It's a place that means something to me. In many ways, it's a part of who I am. And somewhere deep inside of me, I actually believe I'm a part of it. Remember, my father used to, Erev Rosh Hashanah, take his 4 boys to Rosh Shalom, to the massive sanctuary that was there, and we would add rows of chairs. Because I'll let you in on a secret that he never told his board. He told anybody who ever wanted to come to shul on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur that there'd be a seat for them. Just sit in the back on the row that he had set up for them. Don't tell his board. I think they may have lost some money there. I know it's just a place of brick and mortar, but for me, it's a living, breathing thing that held dreams and joys and sorrows for generations of Jews. And that is the same thing, except manifold, multiplied for the land of Israel. It's a story that every Jew tells. It's something that maybe the rest of the world just doesn't get. So let me give you the language to use when trying to explain to those who are willing to listen. Just 5 statements that remind ourselves and explain to the world that is so filled with hatred towards us. Say these things to yourself. Internalize these 5 sentences and help change a narrative that is perpetuated by those, some of who were censured by Congress, and some of them whose blindness and sanctimonious self-righteousness, who might have been reprimanded for pulling a fire alarm. Jews have a continuous presence in the land of Israel. 2, Israel was under Jewish leadership for hundreds of years in antiquity. 3, Jerusalem is the holiest place for those of us who are Jewish. 4, while in exile, Jews never stopped yearning to return to the land of Israel. And 5, Israel plays a central role in our story. Memorize those 5 sentences. And when you are confronted, whether it be on the college campus or in your place of work, At least remind yourself, Israel's a part of you as much as you are a part of Israel. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.